Good afternoon, Realm Walkers. I am Kirk Comet, the host of this podcast and the Realmwright of the Dragon Harvest universe. This is my debut novel, Demon and Witch, a story about Scott and Phoebe who wander into a fantasy world to be its heroes, only to find out that they may end up being its next victims. If you'd like to read it, I encourage you to check it out. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about religions and mythologies that impact your story, your fantasy story. So with that, let's get into it. First, why does religion matter? Well, religion, mythology, if you think about our own world, plays a huge role in our people's history. It plays a huge role in our contemporary story in terms of what people think, how people hang out and spend their time, what people will and won't do is widely based off of what they believe about the world, but also the way we joke with each other. And some of the fun activities, some of the fun games, for example, we play are based off of things that we understand even to be mythology. Some of our common symbols, I think of like the Loch Ness Monster, which most people don't take to be real. And if you do, I'm not at you. I'm just saying that's the case. There's a symbol to it. There's a common cultural reference that we can use. We can use this as an analogy when we talk to other people. It's a fun little piece of our mythos, of our lore. And so these kinds of things shape societal laws and what's taboo. It shapes cultures, it shapes groups, it creates friends, and sometimes it even drafts wars, which is not a pleasant experience, but it's a reality that we face. In our fantasy worlds, for example, I think of Mistborn, and in Mistborn, the Lord Ruler is a man who has ruled for 1,000 years, who claims to be God. How is he alive after 1,000 years? How is he able to control everything? Most people believe he is God. Is he God? Can we kill him? And that's kind of a question that is wrestled with in that book. In this book, there is a creation story that happens outside of the earthly realm, inside the realm of Esperal. So Phoebe and Scott travel to that realm, and there's questions about whether that's legitimate or not, and what that would mean for them inside this environment. And so just like us, whether you're writing elves or dwarves or something else, orcs, it's probably a good idea for them to have some kind of creation story, some kind of religious aspect to them, and to know it for yourself. Doesn't mean that it can be as thick as you want it to be, I guess is what I'll say. But it's important to understand what beliefs are guiding a person. Those kinds of things have narratival power to us. They give us convictions against symbols, themes. They give us sometimes prophecies. I think of Peter Jackson, which plays off of the old Greek and then Roman mythologies. They get their prophecies the kind of way that you would expect an oracle to, because it's Greek mythology. And at times, if the religion is true, those prophecies can have global ramifications as they come to pass. So I think of the Titans again in Percy Jackson. There are a lot of different kinds of religious systems you can choose from. You can go full Tolkien and develop the Silmarillion and just kind of lay it out for us, and I love that. You can keep it in the background. You can, again, make this as thick as you want to, but we have polytheism, monotheism, pantheism, atheism. I'll let you explore those things for yourself. Some people are more into the mysticism end of things when they're writing their stories, and that's okay too. But whether a character buys into these things or has more of agnostic or like a nihilistic even viewpoint where nothing is really objectively matters, it's going to impact how that character interacts with the world. If you have a hero, they've got to believe something, whether that's religious in its sense or it's not. They need to have core convictions, and how those convictions interact with these different groups is going to shape a lot of your story. And I would just encourage you, as you try to do that, make up fantasy religions. That's cool. Do that. Definitely do that. Try not to caricature religions that exist in our world. I think that just gets tricky to navigate, and I want to be sensitive to that. And so, try and be respectful of everybody that you can. Be openly fake, and then try and make something that is believable in the middle of being openly fake. And I think that's how the sweetest ones pan out. And so I think of Arda, and I think of the systems that the Tolkien makes, and he's got smaller deities, right, operating for the dwarves and for the elves, and ultimately they all come back to Arda. There is like a monotheistic sense to it, but it's really cool that he developed this system that allows us to enjoy it, but doesn't make us, I think, sit too heavily in our own world and feel any kind of way. And so navigating that, I admit, is tricky, and I would just encourage you to be openly fantasy about it, unless you have a better way and you know a better way. But with that, what kind of clergy are there? Are there people who worship the old gods, and then are there people who worship the new ones? Are there temples? Are there priesthoods? Are there people who go on sacred rites? Those kinds of, sacred passages. Are there texts, grimoires? Are there documents that are important to people? And how does it impact the magic system? Are there certain religious sects that can use magic that no one else can? Are there certain religious sects that won't use magic no matter who else will? And then when a character dies, how does that belief system play into what's going on around them? Will they see this person again? Is this the end of all, or is this the end of this moment? Is death is Hades a place that you can visit in your story, because that's how the gods set it up? Or is paradise a place you can visit in your story? Are hauntings things that can happen? Do ghosts walk the earth? These are all questions that your mythology and your religious systems are going to play into. And I would encourage you to think of mythology as cultural storytelling. It's a collection of true to just like campfire stories that have been combined together, added to each other, and formed into one collective narrative with different takes on it as people go. People will disagree on different points, but their history will impact how they view the mythological stories around them. So I think of the Portal Keeper, and who the Portal Keeper is to people in this story is he's got such a high mythos that it's very dependent on your own history as well as the greater story around him to understand who he is. In terms of myths, there are oral ones, there are written ones. Those are all good things to think through. Pitfalls. I would avoid stereotyping real world faiths. I think that's a really good idea. I wouldn't make one called Thristianity. I wouldn't do that. I think that's a bad idea. I would try and keep things as cohesive as you can, but also remember that you're telling a story. You're not actually vying for anyone to join your new world religion or whatever it is. You're trying to tell a story, and then tie that religion into the conflict that the characters are facing and the identities of the characters themselves. And if you can do it in that way, you're building your story, you're building your characters, and you're thrusting things forward. I think that's really sweet. And now comes the challenge time. Create a creation myth. Maybe if you're really looking for me to give you some guidance, make it about a dragon who created the world, and this dragon is supposed to come back, or maybe his children are supposed to appear at some point, and all of a sudden you're dealing with a story that's promising us about dragons coming into the world, and are they friends or are they enemies? Are they a mixture of both? And I'm definitely expecting a war to happen at some point. Start writing that story. I want to hear it. I think it would be really fun to read. Okay, to recap, religion and mythology impact the world around them. They impact our world, and they impact fantasy worlds time and time again. And I think it's a really cool way for you to add to your story in a meaningful way. Craft some fun fantasy ideas, or pull from the myths of our world. Pull from Greek mythology if you want to go the Percy Jackson route. That's cool. Pull from Eastern mythology if you want to. That's a sweet idea, but make sure you're not caricaturing real world faiths, because your goal is to tell a fun story, not to unnecessarily offend people. And so with that, let me know kind of some of the fun ideas that you've seen or read about, or ideas that you have for building fun fantasy religions and mythologies. What are we forgetting? What are we missing? What are some of the fun ways you can incorporate them into your story? Let me know in the comments. And if you like this episode, make sure you like it so that I know you did, and subscribe. And that will allow you to be a part of this community in a very organic way. You'll see when videos come out, and we can grow in our fantasy writing and fantasy world building, fantasy storytelling together. This account does talk about all things fantasy, but specifically demon and witch and fantasy writing. And so we're so grateful that you're here with us, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks.